I don't think they're gonna mind. Anyway, welcome to episode 14 of the Read the Manga podcast with Corey and Zach. Today we are doing the second part of our three-part Rurouni Kenshin special, covering the Kyoto arc this time. So we're going all the way up to all the Shishio stuff. So this is like the meat and potatoes of Rurouni Kenshin. When people think of Rurouni Kenshin, they think of this arc because they
Oh, literally, they only think of this arc because, for the most part, nobody even knows there was shit after this.
Yeah, because it didn't get adapted into the anime. The Jinshu arc was manga only, and the anime ended on a filler arc.
You got OVAs, but who the hell is gonna pay for like some random ass like made to DVD like Rurouni Kenshin thing that they don't know about,
I might.
right?
I really like Rurouni Kenshin. Um, but yeah, so since we last left off, Kenshin basically got a call from Saito Hajime, who is a real guy, to go and assassinate this guy who's trying to take over Japan named Shishio Makoto. And Shishio Makoto was essentially the successor to Hitokiri Batosai, Kenshin's previous alter ego, and was essentially hired by the government to do the same kind of jobs as Kenshin. And then they didn't really like the way he did those jobs, so they tried to assassinate him. And now he's all covered in burns and looks like a fucking mummy man. But he's trying to take over Japan and overthrow the Meiji government. And Kenshin has to essentially go out there and decide whether he's actually going to kill the guy.
Which I mean, like, whoa, it's Kenshin, the guy with the sword that doesn't kill people.
Yeah, and he might have to kill somebody.
Wow.
So okay, the first thing I want to talk about this is like I freaking love the character of Saito Hajime because I feel like he just threw a wrench into the entire series and really sort of made you question Kenshin's worldview a little bit. He's the guy that kind of called out Kenshin on his own hypocrisy as a guy.
Well, yeah, he's a ex Shinsengumi member.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah. He's got the stabby thing, the Gatatsu.
You know, it kind of dawned on me. My whole family's all about playing pool, apparently, and then I'm like, oh shoot, this guy's like style of fighting, like that makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
it's
do that and
basically
I
playing
die.
pool.
I die like almost immediately because I'm pretty bad at playing pool.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's something I noticed is like the dude's fighting style is like holding a katana like a pole cue and being like, well, you know, and that's why it was kind of funny to see him fight sometimes.
Yeah.
And like just see people come out like, I'm shonen level dispatch.
Well,
Like I'm too injured to continue, but not injured enough to make this a TVMA.
I don't know if you read up on
And
the historical context of this, but the real Saito Hajime went on to invent the game of pool.
we're full of shit. Funny as fuck.
uh,
Yeah, I learned my lesson after my dad told me that homework was invented by some Roman dude or Greek dude named Homer Workius. And I was like, well, fuck that guy as a kid.
I like the one where running was invented by Thomas Running when he tried to walk twice at the same time.
Who told you that?
I saw it on Reddit.
Oh man, like I'm talking like real life. Like I came home from school like as a little kid and was like, I hate homework, and my dad was like, well, some Greek guy or Roman guy or whatever the fuck they were,
Homeworkicus.
like said was like, you know, the mental battle is not done just in the lavatory; it's done at home as well. And his name was Homer Workius, and I was like, well, fuck that guy.
were you more like on the age of like 6 or 7, or more like 14 or 15 when he told you this?
I don't know. By that point, we're also discussing like, you know, over the phone, like telecommunicatedly over a podcast, like what end of the spectrum I probably were or am
Oh,
at that point.
okay.
So essentially, what I find funny about the Kyoto arc of Kenshin is like, if Tokyo is like the New York City, then what is Kyoto to Japan? Is that like they're like, well, Tokyo's where real shit goes down, but then Kyoto's like we're like kind of like pretty serious shit goes down,
Well,
or we're allowed to get away with more like damage going on.
well, I didn't read enough into the historical nature of it, but the way that I could kind of see it based on the way I was reading the manga, it seems like Kyoto was more of like the hub of the revolution because Rurouni Kenshin did most of his fighting there. His master's located there. That seemed like because like I don't think Tokyo became like a huge central like hub until like much later in Japan's history, like after the Meiji era. At this point, it seemed like Kyoto was kind of where all the stuff was going on. Like Tokyo was kind of like bumfuck, like a developing city a little bit because it had changed names several times. It was called something else before Tokyo, but I can't remember what it was. I think it was called Edo.
It's actually pretty interesting because we just did a series, Jujutsu Kaisen,
Hmm.
where they had a definitive Kyoto arc.
Yeah,
So I was just like, why is Kyoto the target
yeah,
of
because
so many bad battles?
Kyoto is where a lot of historical stuff went down. That's why we didn't bomb it during World War II because of the historical value of that city. We were going to bomb Kyoto, and we decided on Hiroshima and Nagasaki instead. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it had a lot
I
of
didn't
cool
know that.
shrines and stuff. Yeah, Truman went on vacation there and liked it.
Okay, also, pretty interesting fact while we're on it.
Hmm.
During that time period, Winston Churchill had a condition which made it hard for him to wear clothes all the time.
Hmm.
So, oftentimes, when he came and visited the White House, he was naked.
Yeah, I remember there's that story about him meeting Abraham Lincoln's ghost. Have you heard that?
What?
Where
Okay, well, I'm talking about how like he was sitting there with like,
no, no, no.
FDR, and FDR was like, you seem very uncomfortable or whatever, and he's like, well, I have a condition which makes it hard for me to wear clothes that are stuffy as these for political matters, and
Yeah,
he's like, you might as well go like a la carte, like put the whole Winston Churchill out,
yeah. No, so this is where I heard about this. Where I guess this is kind of an apocryphal story or whatever, or apocryph. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but basically this is kind of like
what are you
a
talking about?
what?
Like an apothecary?
I don't know, but it,
Like, are you gonna start mixing leaves together and tell a story?
no, I'm saying that like this story is like it's basically about how the White House is haunted, but apparently when Winston Churchill was staying at the White House, he was walking around his bedroom naked and he walked in and saw Abraham Lincoln's ghost. And he looked at Abe Lincoln's ghost and was like, I'm sorry, Mr. President, you seem to have caught me at a disadvantage. And Abraham Lincoln kind of smiled, tipped his hat, and disappeared.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Because I guess the White House is haunted with Abe Lincoln's ghost.
That's weird though. You figure the place where you got shot in the head would be where you'd haunt,
You would figure.
but maybe it's a place where people spend the most time.
Yeah. So as far as like,
So like back on Kenshin, you know, in that world, the ghost of your actions is what's important.
well, yeah, because
Like Shishio.
I yeah, I think a huge reason why this arc is so interesting and why Kenshin is so interesting in general is because so many mangas like Naruto and Bleach have and Jujutsu Kaisen have their characters haunted by a literal demon. Whereas Rurouni Kenshin, it's very much a metaphorical demon. It's not like something that he unleashes and becomes more powerful. That demon is only just that line that he crosses of whether to kill or not. That's the deciding factor of his fights, of whether he can actually make that step to kill his opponent or whether he can stick to his own ethics and still win the fight without having to kill them. And that's the point where the demon comes out. It has almost no correlation to his actual skill. It's strictly related to his willingness to kill his opponent. Like that's what makes him dangerous. And that's why like Saito Hajime doesn't respect him because he doesn't have that killer instinct anymore. And that's the difference between Kenshin and the Batosai, and whether the Batosai has any place in the modern world or whether like Kenshin's gonna have to bring out that Batosai again for this one last kind of like mission to like preserve the Meiji government.
Well, I mean, like the whole last part you said, like mission to protect the Meiji government. Like, so reading the Kyoto art, where it's like, okay, cool, like some crazy shit's going down. Mummy Man is mad and
Yes.
needs to be taken down by the hammers of justice that are Rurouni Kenshin and his allies.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do this? And I like his master. I like the way he puts things in perspective. He's just like, dude, like, honestly, I trained you really well to do a specific thing, which is be really good at our sword fighting technique.
Mm-hmm.
And, you kind of took that without my permission and did a lot of shit that I don't agree with, which is murder a fuck ton of people.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
his master's not
I
above
think
murder. He just didn't really want Kenshin doing it for essentially using those skills to fight for the government.
his master was essentially a Second Amendment's right person, whereas he was somebody who taught Kenshin how to use his Second Amendment rights to protect himself, whereas Kenshin took it upon himself to lucratively or they never really addressed why Kenshin went into becoming a dog in the military in Rurouni Kenshin.
because
Now that I read,
because he
like, I know there's like extra work going on, but that's just one of my things. Is like his teacher explicitly stated for the guy not to use this, group fighting sword technique to work for the government, and then he goes and does it.
well, because he didn't want him
I
to
get
he
that.
didn't want him to get involved on one side or the other of a political conflict. For the master, it was all kind of the same, and the shit would sort itself out. Whereas Kenshin was like, I believe that overthrowing the current government is the right thing to do, and I believe that lending my skills to the revolution is going to end the current bloodshed and end the war faster. That's what
I
Kenshin
get
was
I
trying to
get that,
do.
but from like a student perspective,
Yeah,
like it's kind of a dick move.
yeah.
Your martial arts literally called "Don't work with the government" sword fighting technique,
That's
and
the literal
he's
translation of
like,
Hiten
"Wow,
Mitsurugi.
yeah, literally, that is what the teacher said." He's like, "My sword fighting technique is literally meant to protect people who don't have a leg up, and you wouldn't help the fucking people who have a leg up, dude. Like, what the hell?"
Yeah, well, but that's the thing. Kenshin thought he was doing right because he thought he was helping the underdogs. He thought
And that's why his teacher put him in his place.
he
And that's why I like Kenshin
he
towards the end. And that's why I think this arc only made me happy because of the fact that as far as Kenshin was portrayed as an Oro, like displaced protagonist kind of dealio,
yeah
his past came back to get a hold of him, in which, like, oh, the people that I had a slice of life story with are now affected by my inability to close cases. Oh well, and it's not his fault that he was unaware that there's like Shishio's existence,
hmm
you know. But at the end of the day, it's just like I find Kenshin's existence like more comedic than actually like heroic for a protagonist because you know at least like I don't know as far as Kenshin goes versus like I don't know like Yusuke like not gonna compare it to too bad, but it's just like Kenshin's literally standing there like I wasn't aware of most things, and I just want to be a good guy, and I know that I was a bad guy, and I'm just like I feel like Yusuke has more of like a feeling of like atoning and responsibility than Kenshin in some ways in that regard, because like I don't know, I'm not sure 100% on that. I don't
well,
know, but it's just
I think Yusuke is well, I think Kenshin is kind of what Yusuke would eventually become, because Kenshin's whole thing is like this is the simplistic. This is something that I feel like people oversimplify with Kenshin's philosophy. He was,
Well, he is older than he appears to be, so
yeah,
I don't give him that. Like
and
he's had a lot of years to accrue a lot of psychological and emotional
yeah,
damage. It wasn't all like compacted, and he just
and I think people misrepresent Kenshin's original mission with the as the Batosai as being an inherently evil one, which no, he genuinely felt that he was trying to do good, and he brought in a government that was objectively better than the last one. It wasn't perfect, but the new Meiji government is overall a more peaceful government than the one that he brought down. So Kenshin was essentially a freedom fighter. He was part of the revolution. He was like a fucking Che Guevara type going out and beating this oppressive government. And now he's kind of at this place of like, it's not necessarily that like he regrets killing people, but more like I have to leave that part of my past behind me because it has no place in the modern world that I've created. This isn't because he was thinking beforehand, he was thinking on the ideological macro level. Now he's thinking on the personal micro level of like, okay, what do I have to do to atone for the individual people I killed, rather than before it was like, if I you're going to have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. It was more like a Saito Hajime philosophy of like, some people are going to have to die if we're going to bring in this government. I'm going to have to be a soldier. And I don't think Kenshin's initial perspective was necessarily amoral or immoral. I think that his perspective just evolved with the changing times of the world. And I think that his changing of philosophy was getting a little bit ahead of where the world was going at that point. Like he knew the trajectory of it, but he was a little bit further along in that in his own development as a person, whereas the world was still like facing threats like Shishio and still kind of needed to have people like Kenshin go out there and be willing to commit violent acts for the greater good. But Kenshin just doesn't want to be that guy anymore.
So do you feel like the author like actually was able to successfully portray somebody who was used as like a tool or a means to the end to a greater good, and you know they did have to see things, being the gear in a meat grinder isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think like that's something that I think is kind of interesting about Rurouni Kenshin is it's kind of like John Wick.
Yeah.
You have all these characters that are like you see a guy show up and
Mm-hmm.
they thrust their sword a certain way and they're like, oh, that's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
he's in a Shinsengumi. Or oh my gosh, that guy, he's wearing that marker. That means he's with that group. Oh, he's really good. Oh, he must be a leader. And it's like a lot of assumptions. So like the readers are kind of like working with the same intel that the characters have because it's such a complicated time.
yeah.
And yeah, what's your you had a comment on that? What were you about to say? Sorry for
So
that.
I guess my thing with Kenshin is that I kind of want to go back to the John Wick thing you said, because that's one of my favorite parts about this series of just looking at the legend of Kenshin. And for
Yeah,
all the credit we give Shishio as being this great villain, I it's okay if you disagree with me on this. This is just my own take, but I think Shishio was genuinely afraid of Kenshin.
I think honestly, like if I
Like
want to get my
he was
opinion on
scared.
it'll take me less than let's see a minute to get my opinion on Shishio out,
Okay,
maybe
because
2 minutes.
I got like a
So
multi-tiered thing that I want to go into, but I want you to go first.
Shishio is an excellent example of like even if you think of him as the sequel to Kenshin,
Hmm.
like we had Blue Beetle, he's Blue Beetle too, or Green Lantern. Oh, he's the second Green Lantern, but he's bad Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Like the thing about Shishio that makes me enjoy him as a character is the fact that he has like aspirations,
Hmm.
he has goals, he has he's willing to like do anything that takes within the world that he's written in to get what he wants. The author gave him like a lot of control of the world, and with his personality I feel like I do not find it like unfeasible. And that's the thing, like when I look at Kenshin I think of like it's a romantic samurai series, but through the Shishio arc it's kind of like James Bond to me.
Mm.
except Samurai James Bond. And I need the villain to be great, and Shishio is a great kind of James Bond samurai villain to
Yeah.
me. He has a great motive. He has a great follow through. Everything he does doesn't seem like, uh, like he doesn't pontificate. He always has a reason for things. Like he doesn't waste time. And the only weakness he had was the fact that like he was like a candle that was burning at both ends. Like he had limited time,
Yes.
and that's what I think was the amazing thing about him as a villain was like the fact that he was so frightening for how long he existed.
Okay. I think that's a great point, and I think part of Shishio's longevity is I don't think he's the best swordsman in the series by a long shot. If you look at just
But he was a great
he was a
villain.
great villain,
Like
but if you
you could say like Catman or Batman or whatever, whoever's the best. Ra's al Ghul is the best martial artist to take on Batman.
yeah.
But like down to it, like maybe Lex Luthor's like the most intelligent person Batman's had to like fight in my
Exactly,
experience.
and
I don't know.
Shishio's more in that Lex Luthor camp than he is in the Ra's al Ghul camp, and but he's still a very skilled swordsman. I put him as far as like all of the swordsmen in the Kyoto arc. I put him at number three.
Oh yeah. I also think it's like gangster is all shit to like have a sheath that is essentially just like the striker on a lighter,
Mhm.
and your sword is essentially just a
Yeah.
serrated like
Well,
bread knife that is meant to collect meat
but
hunks. Like,
that's what's interesting about Shishio is that for all of his warrior spirit and all of his like philosophy of like survival of the fittest, strong live, weak die, he is not looking for a fair fight with Kenshin. He wants to weaken Kenshin as much as physically possible because he knows he can't beat him in a fair fight. He's like, I'm going to send you through the meat grinder of all of my best guys, and I'm going to fight you when you're at your worst. And I think that's what's so interesting about Shishio because he's sitting there like he has the grander ambition of taking over Japan, but I think it was Hoji that asked him kind of at the end of like, hey, like I don't understand, like you sacrificed like all of our best swordsmen to beat Kenshin, like why are you letting this happen? Like this is going to set us back 10 years. Like why aren't you concerned about this? And Shishio's like, I think no, I think it was the woman that said that his girlfriend. She was like, "You don't understand. It's okay if we get set back 10 years. To Shishio, defeating Kenshin is an equivalent accomplishment to taking over all of Japan. That's how much respect
well,
Shishio has for
here's the
Kenshin.
thing. Yeah, because like Kenshin was the dude who was essentially like we said John Wick, but government John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
So when he took over, when Shishio took over his job, he essentially like one, you have to acknowledge or respect that they're like, you're the most powerful guy in Japan right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, cool. And they're like, you're replacing the last most powerful guy in Japan. He's like, who? And that's like
Yeah.
right there, that conversation. Like for somebody to be even retroactively like acclaimed a similar ability to him, he had to not rescind his own personal respect for the position and power he had and throw everything and anything he could at Kenshin because if the tables were turned, that would be how he'd want it
Yeah.
because they are both Batosai.
Yeah. And
And that's why the final battle is just so amazing because it shows like even with each respective ability it just shows how scary of individuals anybody who is in the eyes of who those two were directed at, and ultimately as warrior creatures, animals, whatever, like one of them burned themselves out through combat while the other happened to survive because of one shred of humanity that they held on to. Like in the battle between Kenshin and Shishio, like very well they could have killed each other, like no problem,
yeah.
and they both would have died. But I think it was the humanity that Kenshin like had kept him from going and holding on to that bit to not go out like Shishio did.
Yeah, and he also knew that if he was going to win, the game of ideologies he had to not kill. And I think that's most apparent in his battle with Seita Sojiro. Because I'm going to say this. You know, I said I think Shishio is number 3 as far as best swordsman in the Kyoto arc. So I think
Okay.
number 2 is Kenshin, and I think number 1 is Seita. I think skill for skill, Sojiro is better than Kenshin, and I think if Kenshin had committed to his ideology of like if he had gone back to being the Batosai, I think he would have lost to Sojiro, because I think on pure objective skill, it was outright stated that Sojiro was faster than Kenshin and was better than Kenshin, and I think Sojiro would have won that fight if Kenshin hadn't psychologically broken him through his own ideology and hadn't tested Sojiro's resolve just by making him question the the kind of the the mentality that he's had up to this point. I think Kenshin won the psychological battle with Sojiro, and that's the only reason why he was able to win this physical battle. I don't think that the Batosai would have beaten Sojiro. I think just based on what was stated in the manga and what we saw, I think Sojiro is the best swordsman in the series, just on a pure skill level.
Well, the weird thing about Kenshin to me is like I was looking at like highlights of fights and
Mm-hmm.
such, and you know one thing about Kenshin is like shit's kind of weird and ridiculous to a certain degree. It's kind of like almost Dragon. I say it's like you know Kenshin gets in the same like hot tub as Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, but like Dragon Ball or like Yu Hakusho early times, where it gets like a little bit like exaggerated, excessive in some things. Like, oh my gosh, he pulled Q, stabbed through a wall so hard he like crumbled a bunch of tile on the ground. Like either the tile was shit or that dude like hit leg day hella hard. Like you
Yeah.
know,
Well, it's
for Saito.
exaggerated.
And you get me don't get me wrong. Like I love Saito and I love the exaggeration. I love the suspense of disbelief. Honestly, Saito's my favorite character. I feel like he's the closest Batman in the series.
Yeah, except he fucking
Like
murders people.
no, no, for fucking real. But you know it's great.
Hmm.
Hey kid, you have a family? Nah, go see my wife.
No.
Boom. Like drops a kid in the middle of combat, like in the middle of battlefield. Like Kenshin's like, what happened to that kid? He's like, my wife is taking care of them back in the city.
Mhm.
Like, and they're like, you adopted me? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. We're in the middle of work. Like, let's not talk about
Yeah.
this. Like,
Like Saito Hajime is a good guy. It's just he has a more realistic worldview of Kenshin of like he knows that you gotta kill some of the bad eggs, but like ultimately if he knows that you're good, he's gonna help you. Like he's not like a
well, Zach, it comes part of the complicated politicalness of the Shinsengumi. You know how
Mhm.
people felt about it too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Shinsengumi are essentially like the guys in black for like people in the U.S. in the 50s and 60s when like the Martian stuff was going on, but except it was just like or the communist stuff and all that.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty much like the most brutal warriors and pretty like well off like warriors and all that like during that time. And then when their side won, they're like put in charge of like figuring out who wasn't like completely on the side
Yeah.
that they were on. But I mean, like, there's nothing, like I don't know. That's just how it's going. But it's like to think like Kenshin is considered like, hey, like, hey, why aren't you on our side? And that's like what Saito thinks a lot. Like, darn it, like you're like the Bato side, and now you're just this guy.
You know what kind of reminded me of the way Saito Hajime calls Kenshin Batosai and refuses to call him Kenshin reminds me a lot of Vegeta's motivation for calling Goku Kakarot. Like I'm not going to acknowledge your new identity because I know that's not really you.
Yeah, and it's not the person you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like if your name was like Chili Dump, or like the dump truck, or like Super Beefinator in high school. And then like I'm like, hey, what's going on, Super Beefinator? And you're like, my name's Zach.
It's like, nah, bro,
I'm just
you're
like,
always gonna be the beefinator.
is there a innating that needs to be beefed? This guy can innate things that need to be
Yeah,
beefed.
this guy's the fucking beefinator, bro. You should have seen him in high school. It's
Yeah.
like, nah, dude, I'm just Zach now. I don't fucking know. I feel like we just went into a Rick and Morty bit, but so fucking
Is it just that when you just go off like a tangent slightly as a Rick and Morty bit? Do we just give Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon like free reign of that, like Shakespeare for saying thou?
yeah, pretty much. But it's always some.
Oh, whenever you go on a tangent, that's just a Rick and Morty
But
moment. That's just
it's gotta be something involving food or excrement.
okay. For some creatures, they're one and the same thing. Um, for other creatures, they can't watch our podcast, so I don't give a fuck. So like we're in the clear.
So um another
All right, while we're on it this week, we have to talk about it.
what?
As much as Kenshin's awesome, we lost another swordsman's author this week.
Yep. Murata?
Kento Mira.
Kento Mira. Yeah, he the creator of Berserk died. That sucked. Playing
I just want to say it.
He's playing Idol Master in Heaven now.
I believe in you, man.
He's just sitting there playing Idol Master, and God's just like, God damn it, I let you into heaven so you could work on Berserk. And he's just like, I'll get to it.
Yeah, right? Like,
uh,
we'll die, we'll be told, like, well, it sucks that he couldn't make it to heaven because, like, Mira finished Berserk, and we'll be like, but his company finished Berserk down here. Be like, yeah, well, he actually finished it, and God will be walking by, like, you know what? I like your guys' version a little bit more. Guy's a little spoiled up here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy. He's a dickhead. Nah, I'm just kidding.
So, okay.
Nah. I don't know, but I wanted to talk about that because it made me think a lot of the series that we have been doing, as serious as Kenshin is,
mm-hmm.
it's a little light. I don't know.
Little light.
I feel like we do too many shonens.
We do a lot of shonens, but that's because I've been going off of the fucking Viz app and I want to use it because I pay for it. Plus, it's like more people know about shonens. If they're
We are not compromising our system for Viz. We're gonna do a big boy series next.
If there was a Dark Horse streaming site where you could just read all of the stuff on the Dark Horse imprint, like Berserk and stuff and Gantz and shit, then yeah, that would be awesome. But it's also like I don't want to read scans. I fucking hate scans. I hate translations. Trying to get through Doro was painful enough.
There is a Dark Horse app, and they do have manga on it.
Well, so okay, you know how you were talking about the exaggeration of Kenshin's battle scenes a little bit?
Somewhat, yeah.
So what I like about Kenshin is that it does do the exaggeration. Like you have to just accept that these characters are superhuman. Like guys can block bullets with swords. Sanosuke can punch through solid brick. Like that's just, you got to accept that. But I do love that the sword fights don't come to battles of power. They come to battles of skill and wits. So it's not about who's the stronger guy. It's about who can draw his sword faster and who has the more technical skill. And I feel like one of my favorite parts is in Kenshin's fight with Aoshi, because Shishio straight up says that they're at a very similar skill level, which I believe. But they go in and fight, and Kenshin is able to beat him. And Kenshin and Aoshi basically said, he's like, yeah, but you were only faster than me by the width of a piece of paper. And Kenshin's like, that width of that piece of paper represents a gigantic chasm that lies between us. And that's one of my favorite things about Kenshin is that like so many of these guys, it almost correlates to me with modern MMA that so many guys are so skilled that it does just become a game of centimeters of like who is slightly better than the other is going to dominate that person. And I feel like that's such a huge thing with Kenshin of like so much of the battles are like really a toss up of like either guy can win this. It just kind of depends on who's just like that tiny millimeter better. And you don't really get that in a lot of shonen because a lot of shonen fights are kind of like one-sided beatdowns where like some guy has like twice the power level of the other guy. Whereas like with Kenshin it's like no, we're all kind of around the same level. It's really just that little tiny millimeter of skill that makes the difference. And I feel like that's a lot closer to real fighting and how it is at the elite level. And so I've always kind of appreciated the way Rurouni Kenshin goes about battle scenes like that and portraying his character's skill levels.
Well, especially since like they're using like katanas and stuff. So
Yeah, we're
those are like the highest end of like equipment for battle at the time, other than like, well, I mean, like rifles and guns weren't even at the like best level they could be at.
yeah, it's
So
still
a lot of the all the characters we're seeing are the cream of the crop of using their respective like field of battle and stuff, and it's pretty crazy.
yeah. One clean hit is going to kill you. It's just who can land that clean hit first. As in when you saw Usui versus Saito, and all he needed was that one thrust to get through and get him.
That's my thing. Is like the guy who, you know, teaches the futawai or futai or whatever the super hit, right?
The which one?
Do you know Sato?
Saito. The you mean the Gatatsu?
You know,
Oh, Sano.
the
Oh,
crazy,
yeah,
yeah, the crazy double hit
yeah. The
thing.
double hit thing. Yeah,
Like I felt like by that point the Kyoto arc could have done without him. Like he could have just been like a TN.
yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna just stay on the sidelines because that's what he was essentially.
But at least
But I felt like you could have removed a lot of the extra the stuff because like by a certain point, I don't know, it just became like we need like one of those characters to stand there and be like, whoa, this is like next level fighting. Oh my god, like I'm only here because I'm like they're a purple belt and I'm a blue belt, and so I'm still here.
well, yeah.
I could punch like
So
twice in 1 second.
it's there's no doubt that
And
Sanosuke is a prelim fighter, and Rurouni Kenshin and Saito and all
yeah,
them are main eventers. Like it's there's a different level in skill, but I at least
Sanosuke, sorry about
I
that.
like that Watsuki has enough respect for his side characters that he actually gives them real battles. But there is one instance where I think he goes too far with that. I think that the Yahiko and Karu and Misao defeating the Jupen Katana basically by themselves, that went a little too far for me. Because I'm kind of like, okay, so you got a 10-year-old and some chick with a wooden sword defeated Shishio's best guys. Like, these guys must kind of fucking suck, you know? It reminded me of like of the Ewoks beating the Empire in Return of the Jedi. You know what I mean? That whole scene where like they attack the dojo and stuff, and Yahiko's able to fight off that flying bat guy. Like it was kind of like I didn't really believe that Yahiko and Karu and all them would actually be able to beat those characters.
I don't know, and the fact that you have like ridiculous freaking characters like that, like at the end of the day, it's like I was more like I like if you were asked me like a year from now what I remember about this like Rurouni Kenshin episode, it'd be like Kenshin, the main character, fought some bad guys who were competent. A few of them became vigilantes or side characters. Another became like a joke character, like Brock
Mm-hmm.
from Pokemon, and uh, he pretty much sells most things, and they get into shenanigans on the way. Like it's kind of weird, but it's just like you know like Aoshi, like he's a weird character. Like I feel like him and Sanosuke got kind of like shoehorned into the Shishio stuff. If it was just Saito and Kenshin, I would have been fine with that. I feel like the author trying to give respect to his side characters and spread things out a little thicker and fill it out kind of weakened the main thing, which is like, hey Kenshin, you have a score to settle. Let's try and keep as many people out of this. All right, Saito, you'll help me out. And then like maybe Aoshi being brought in like last minute
Mm-hmm.
would have been interesting, but the whole like introducing characters like that girl who has something to do with it and all
See, I
that,
like
it
Misao.
just,
I thought the storyline with her and Aoshi was pretty good. Like you need side
I
stories
mean,
like that.
I don't know. I just feel like it. I feel like Kenshin's one of those series where it is like I guess I kind of gripe about like how Saito would gripe about it. Like I don't need all this fluff bullshit. I am more interested in like the serial kind of crap, you know.
Yeah,
And
I can see that.
but I mean, I get like and then we both look at each other like, well, we're talking about a series that's called like Modern Swordsman Rurouni Kenshin kind of crap, like so it's like I get it, like, but there's like parts where it just I don't know, the tone kind of gets confusing sometimes where it's like, is this series, is this not? And then I get like suspending disbelief for like guy who has fat covered blade that can combust, but then when you have people that are literally like One Piece level huge, and then some sword guy comes in, he's like, "Well, I'm Kenshin's master, and I'm just like the fucking Chad of the series." And Kenshin's master is my favorite character.
Yeah.
I love that dude. He's my favorite
But he's
character.
also powerful enough to be story breaking, and that's why Watsuki had to find something to do with him. And he's like, I guess the only real challenge would be for him to fight a giant. Like that was
Yeah,
Watsuki's thinking, where he's like, fuck, like I don't really know how to insert this guy into the story without him just solving everything. It's kind of like the same problem with Goju and Jujutsu Kaisen.
I would have preferred if he threw like 1,000 guys at him than one really big guy.
Mm,
Just saying, because it's more realistic to throw 1,000 guys at a guy than I don't know, like, hey Zach, can you just go find a giant man?
I I don't know. I'm kind of two minds
He
about
needs to
it.
be about Optimus Prime's height to go fight this guy. Just saying. Or you could find me 1,000 normal sized people who are willing to take like $5 a pop to fight this guy.
Yeah, but then it would just be him just destroying a bunch of fucking random mooks.
No, it'd be like depending on how well you choreograph it, it could be like constant sword strikes. Like he constantly is defending and attacking simultaneously. So it's like ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
You could find
I just
like
I guess I just feel like that would be
realistically if a human being, a single live human being, like normal human, like not even Captain America level, like took on 1,000 guys and took them on
uh-huh.
and took them out, even 500. Like that was a big dude. I say he was like 30 feet high, so make it like 60 or 100 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Guy single handedly takes on 100 guys, constantly attacking them with different weapons. That'd be impressive,
It would be. I just think it would
you
be a
know.
little bit less visually interesting because we see that so often.
I mean, that's
Like
the point, though. We're talking about Kenshin didn't fight giants and like was Thor. He fought in a war where he killed like politicians and their bodyguards and the strongest guys who could defend like the
yeah,
most important
I
people.
guess it's kind of
That's
like
why I'm like it would be more interesting to see him fight a group of like trained like bodyguards or assassins than a giant dude. I'm just like
I feel like you're
my suspension of disbelief kind of went a little bit out. Like I was like my suspension of disbelief kind of was stretched for this series. I know that I've watched like other series that are ridiculous, like One Piece, where giants are everywhere. But in Kenshin, where it was like some things are kind of ridiculous, like it was just kind of weird to see a giant guy all of a
it
sudden.
was weird. It was kind of out there, and I understand your
Yeah,
point, and I feel like you are just very resistant to some of the more fantastical elements of the series, which is okay. But I kind of I think of it kind of like what 300 did, where it was like based on historical events, but there were a lot of like fantastical and magical elements and stuff, and like gigantic like 20-foot berserkers and stuff like that, where it's like it was based on history, but like it was very much like exaggerated of like There's going to be giants. There's going to be people that can move faster than bullets. There's going to be people that can crush rock with a weird double fist thing. It's kind of like it's almost like watching like an old historical martial arts movie where like everybody inexplicably has superpowers. And that's just one of those things that I accept about Rurouni Kenshin, where like everybody with like a high degree of swordsmanship skill is able to do superhuman feats.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, the fact that guy was able to beat a giant person is pretty crazy in its own right. But still,
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting just a random giant dude to
no.
prove how strong this guy
Yeah.
was. He could have just been like a lot of
So
Kenshin
okay,
is skill.
I'm thinking.
He doesn't like Kenshin doesn't cut a building in half in order to knock a guy out. Like he specifically has to like make sure his strikes are like 90% of killing.
Yeah,
Like boop, I left you with 1 HP. You know
for I guess
the fact
from a
that
writing standpoint, I think I have a way to solve both your problem with it and my problem with it. What if you just had, instead of having Sanosuke be in the attack on Shishio's lair, why don't you have him stay behind and help defend the dojo? Because then it would be more realistic that they would be able to defeat those characters with Sanosuke's help. And also, you wouldn't have like Sanosuke interrupting, or I guess as you could call it, interrupting the like taking the focus off of Kenshin and his mission.
I would have liked if the monk guy just taught Sanosuke what he needed to do and then yeeted out of the plot. Sanosuke stayed, hangs out with Kenshin's master. Kenshin's master's like, beat this giant guy. I'll help you out. He does it, punches the crap out of him. Kenshin's master just cuts his head off or finishes him off, whatever. There you go. That's Sanosuke's plot. Wow, you punched a giant. That's pretty impressive. Cool. But it's like, I don't know. Like it just seemed like there was like it's like leading up like Tyson versus Mayweather coming, July. And then like a bunch of other dudes are like beefing, up on the way. And it's like that's fine, but I don't know. It just seemed like the Aoshi thing kind of seemed like shoehorned in. Some of the Sanosuke thing. The Saito seemed like the only character that I was like, not because of favoritism or bias or anything. I was just like, he just seems like the most plausible character to be involved in this. Like, why is Sanosuke involved in this? Like, even as much as the author tries to be like, oh, well, he's friends with the characters. Of course he'd be involved. I'm just like,
But
that's
I
fine.
guess
It's just like,
I for me, Sanosuke being there had two really good kind of I guess here are the two reasons I was cool with Sanosuke being there. One, I loved the gag of him constantly grabbing Shishio's girlfriend and just fucking taking her along and being like, okay, we're going this way. And she can't really do shit about it except complain. And I love the gag of just him and Saito talking shit to each other.
yeah,
Like,
and I mean, like,
I love that Sanosuke sees Saito as a rival, and Saito's just like, "You get away from me. Kenshin's my rival. Like, you're not even shit."
or like he's essentially a prop for Saito to make him like comical. So like whenever Saito's involved, it's not like breeding like grim dark Kenshin. It's like you have something, a prop to kind of lean off of. Like here's my goon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, I'm Sanosuke. I'm here to make Saito seem more like human
But
by being silly and
it's
frustrating him.
it's a very much like when your ex meets your new girlfriend and they're like, "Dude, you downgraded."
I'm just saying, like, dude who like is his one power is just throwing a crazy punch is valuable in a freaking mission where they're on the water and they're like, "Don't worry, he'll just punch the fucking boat or some shit." Like,
I thought that was cool.
it just seemed
He
like
needs a use for punch in a world of swords. You gotta have the punching guy. You
I
gotta.
would have rather just I would rather just expedite. Like there are so many great aspects of Shishio versus like Kenshin
Mhm.
and building their relationship along with Saito and like Aoshi could have kind of been involved, but he wasn't really involved other than his like death thing with Kenshin. So that's why I'm like that dude's unnecessary. Like Saito, Kenshin, and Shishio alone would have been interesting. Like I would have rather had it be like Saito and Kenshin working together like cornered him on his battleship and settled it then and there on a burning battleship, and then like had like a dramatic moment where it's like, but Saito just adopted a kid and it was his last day on the job. No. And then Kenshin's like, well, good thing that I floated on the reverse end of my sword back to safety. And everybody's like, we don't give a fuck about that, but good for you. And then like Shishio's like, rah, I'll come back again. Now I'm wrapped in seaweed. And I'll fight you by water. And then, like, rides on a whale and disappears because he's fucking Shishio. He's a Chad. And, like, I would have preferred that than we'll just have Sanosuke somehow propel himself on a boat super quickly and, like, punch some. I don't know. The whole boat thing was ridiculous. If you're going to go the boat route, you might as well just, like, go that route and just like remove everything else and just be like, I'm just going to rely on the great dialogue and the backstory that I prepared instead of trying to shoehorn all these extra characters in because of popularity
Well, it
polls.
also
Like,
the boat thing also represents the old
we
world.
didn't need to hear about the chick being like, Kenshin left and now I have to go. Kara, like, I gotta go find Kenshin. He went on his own because he was like, I'm gonna go on a very dangerous thing. I don't want you to get you guys involved, so I'm leaving. And I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna defeat the purpose of him letting me know that it's really dangerous. He doesn't want to get us involved, so I'm gonna leave because I don't know, love and competency. And it's like, I don't know, like there's just so many things. Like he's supposed, it says romance in the freaking title of the series, Zach. And like so far, I've seen this dude just be a homeless dude who crashes at her place and is like, "Hey, I'm hot. Don't let me like. Hey, I'm gonna be back. I gotta go kill some guy who had third degree burn and is super mentally disabled and is convinced that he needs to like destroy Japan because they shot him in the head and like burnt him." And he's super mad, so they want me to kill him. And it's like, well, no shit, he wants to kill everybody. You shot him in the head and burn him alive, and that's why he wears like she's like Saito's like, oh man, you have a forehead protector like a ninja. He's like, they shot me in the face. That's why I wear it. That's why I'm like by the Shishio arc. I'm like Shishio did nothing wrong. He was perfectly within his rights. Like as many she things as he did, it's like well, what did anybody else do? The Meiji government wasn't quite better,
Though I do love the end where like Shishio kind of wins because he's like in hell with fucking Hoji, and it's just like, no, dude, we're gonna just take over hell now, and they're like, all right, Shishio's my man, hasn't lost his ambition. I love
All
that.
right. Well, on that,
Want to know?
I
Want
need to use a
Want to
bathroom.
know a fun fact?
What's that?
Yahiko, Sano, and Kenshin are all 9 years apart in age.
Yeah.
I just it's just funny that the author made them all exactly 9 years. I don't know if he did that intentionally, but it's kind of a cool contrast where it's like
Well, I'll be right back.
three men who know three different Japans. Anyway,
I'll be
wait, are
right
you are
back.
you telling are you telling me my good boy didn't bring his piss jugs?
I'll be right back.
uh, fuck. Anyway, yeah, Rurouni Kenshin's really good. Corey doesn't like it that much, apparently. I don't think he wants to admit that he doesn't like it that much, but he's not that big of a fan. But I kind of understand where he's coming from. But it's just there's certain shit that you just have to fucking like be okay with buying into. Like you have to be okay with the superhuman stuff. You have to be okay with the romance that's not really a romance. You have to be okay with Karu somehow defeating Shishio's best guys with a wooden sword. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief that goes on here, but I think that the good stuff, the characterizations, the historicity of it, the just the way Watsuki writes these conflicts and writes these like multi-layered characters that all have this kind of shared history, I think all of it makes it kind of worth it. Let's see, what else can we talk about? I mean, oh shit, he's back already. Yo,
Hello.
I was just talking to our 3 listeners about Rurouni Kenshin. What's that?
That was the point of the episode, right?
Yeah, no, I just when you were in the bathroom, I did a little conversing with the audience.
Okay, so on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Rurouni Kenshin.
Okay. We talk about Tokyo Ghoul instead.
Well, the artist just came out with a new series. I read the one shot. That was interesting.
Anyway, so do you think you want to wrap this up, or do you have any other opinions on Kenshin?
Well, we're not done, right? Like we still have the last arc.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do the Jinshu arc. I guess. Do you have any more opinions on
Yeah.
the Kyoto arc?
I honestly really like the Kyoto arc. I mean, as much as I have gripes about the way Kenshin's author kind of shoehorns in characters needlessly, like, and he does it like that's the thing. He has a skill at shoehorning characters needlessly. Like, you will still enjoy them being there because they're great characters. He has great characters.
I disagree with the shoehorning thing. I think everything kind of ties in together. Like
I feel like I feel like he did a great job convincing you that way, but I feel like the plot would run a lot more smoothly, even if the characters want to interrupt and come into it. It just felt weird, like Sanosuke having to get arrested in order to get Saito's attention, and this and that. Like, I'm sure, I don't know. I guess we're like on differentiating opinions, like on the whole, like. I don't know.
like
Billy's here. Hey, Billy, come here. No, you can't. You gotta come here real quick. Did you feel like Well, you gotta be on camera too.
What, Sanosuke?
Sanosuke. Did you feel like Sanosuke was shoehorned into the Shishio arc?
Sanosuke.
The
one that
punch
punched
guy.
it, right?
Yeah.
Dude, he didn't really belong there at all. I don't know. They dragged him through the whole thing. He was kind of useless.
he beat the
Besides,
monk
like,
guy,
Kenshin.
and
I think of him as
he
like
talks shit with Saito.
like a kind of opposite, right? He doesn't have any redemption. He's young.
Well, Zach says I beat the monk guy, and he talks shit to Saito. Well, with Saito. So he's like a good Kevin Hart.
He's a good foil,
Saito's.
yeah.
Well, yeah, like he's Kevin Hart to Saito's The Rock.
They gave him his own comic book. They liked him that much. They gave him his own comic book, but I don't know. I didn't like him that much.
I don't know. Apparently, Sanosuke has his own series.
Yeah,
spin-off.
They should have gave it to Yasuko.
Hey Corey, can Billy hear me right now?
That would have been a lot more right.
Well, I repeated to him what you said.
I know, but I wanted to talk to him directly.
Oh, okay, let me take mine.
I don't know. Sorry, I can't remember.
All right, because it's a Yu Hakusho or a Rurouni Kenshin episode. Zach wants to hear your opinion on something.
No, I just wanted to ask Billy if he wants to be our producer.
Honestly, I like Oshi or whatever his name is.
See, he likes Aoshi.
He likes Aoshi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that character.
And you were saying Aoshi.
Everybody likes Aoshi. He's like the cool loner. He's a loner with 2 swords. You give anybody 2 of one weapon in any universe, and they're their favorite character.
Yeah, but
one lightsaber. Oh, whoa, he has 2 lightsabers.
But he was a fun character because he started out as a sympathetic villain and then kind of went into more of this hate-fueled revenge thing, and then Kenshin had to come back and kind of remind him what his principles are and kind of be like, hey, Miss Sao fucking misses you, right? She misses the old Aoshi. Not this Aoshi. I don't like this Aoshi.
He was a ninja murder guy. That's the thing.
That's the whole point of the Oniwa Banshu, is that they weren't really villains. They were kind of their own thing, and they all kind of cared for each other.
All right. You know what, Zach? I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin on this discussion.
Okay.
All right.
Is it a reverse blade nail?
No. How dare you?
What?
Okay, so Ken in Japanese typically means like, the sword or blade or stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever considered what shin means?
It's the part between your foot and your knee.
You son of a bitch, I will kill you.
What does shin mean?
It can mean true, extend, new, heart, belief, progress, humility, advance, and gentleman.
Yeah, those are all Kenshin.
Yeah. And the one that goes with the kanji that is used for his name that I picked, that I figured out was heart.
Okay.
So his name translates to like sword fighting heart.
All right.
Well, Ken.
So he uses the heart of the cards, but through a sword.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it would be like, Kevin Hart, but spelled Hart.
So you're saying that
But in
you're
kanji,
saying that Kevin Hart should play Kenshin.
yes.
Okay.
Kenshin Hart.
Okay.
Or Kevin Himura.
All right. I think this is over. Next week we're going to be talking about the Jinshu arc. Until then, make sure to watch the Rurouni Kenshin anime, but more importantly, read the manga.